Welcome to Premium Cashflow Real Estate Investing Podcast with Sakar Cowley. During this program, you will hear guest experts sharing their experiences, best practices, and market insights. We discuss investing in multifamily apartment complexes and how a busy professional can passively invest hassle-free in various opportunities. Your host, Sakar Cowley, owns millions of dollars of assets and has done thousands of value-add projects over 20 years now. So listen in for insights. Here's your host, Sakar Cowley.
Welcome to another edition of Premium Cashflow Podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Kelly Stinson and Anselmo Torres with Sustainability Solutions, also known as SAS Company. Their niche is in helping owners and multifamily owners in saving water and implementing some strategies to kind of, conserve the water usage. And as we all know that adding to the bottom line is what this business is about, whether you grow your rents and your income, or you perhaps reduce your expenses, kind of adds to your bottom line and hence your NOI and your profitability. Their company has, niche software which they can implement. They have specific strategies about how you can evaluate, save water and things like that. So today we are going to discuss a lot more into the strategies, how they do these things, and kind of learn some more details. So thank you for taking time, Kelly and Anselmo. I appreciate you taking time. How about give us some background as to kind of how you guys started and why this is such a great passion of yours into kind of saving the water and helping different owners, and you have such a great company that you have established. Help us get started there.
Sure. That's a great introduction. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So I have only been with the organization now for close to 3 years, and I've always had a passion around water and energy conservation. But most specifically, my previous professional role, I really had a unique opportunity with a mentor to launch an energy division. And through that engagement, that led me to meeting an individual with Niagara, who actually is the manufacturer of the products that we install here at SAS. And he had shared with me that, hey, you need to come talk to these people at SAS because you would get to be laser focused on where your passion is every day instead of a little bit of everything. And sure enough, that's what I did. And within the first 5 minutes of my meeting, I knew immediately this is where I needed to be, because this is my platform. I'm very interested in saving water for, preserving that for my girls as they grow up. But then on the other side, I'm delivering something to our clients that's super exciting, which is increasing net operating income on their properties. So when I get phone calls from our clients that we've increased their asset value by, $950,000, or like one of the most recent ones we had, we increased their asset value over $2 million through their project. That is so rewarding, right? So that gets you super excited. So Anselmo and I kind of met a couple of years ago through some of our networks with some projects he was working on. And so I'll kind of let him share a little bit about that and where his passion's from.
Yeah. So it's funny, earlier you mentioned getting that high water bill, and there's nothing exciting about getting that really high water bill. So about 4 to 5 years ago, created a water monitoring program called LeakAware that was helping us monitor water consumption on multifamily properties, because the idea is if you can't monitor it, you can't manage it, right? So we were helping get ahead of this, reducing that expense just by monitoring your daily water consumption. So over that course of 3-4 years, I met Kelly, and we decided, hey, we need to work together. There's an opportunity for us to partner up. Sustainability Solutions is obviously, sustainability has to happen beyond that last toilet that we install. So how can we work together beyond?
Sure. And I'm very passionate about sort of improving these things as well, Anselmo. And as we all kind of shared in the green room before, like we all want the passion of, hey, seeing the new development. You're seeing, like, sort of the new buildings and the glass towers and things like that rising up everywhere, right? But we have all forgotten, okay, the galvanized piping that's underneath, perhaps the the clay sewer lines that still exist, for example, and these things, when they break, it is a very painful lesson, because you're going through permits and all kinds of different restrictions that come with this, and it's never fun to see such a high water bill for perhaps a pipe that pretty much gave up underneath, and that's the state of our sort of national infrastructure that we are dealing with right now. So let's talk about some of the details, Kelly and Anselmo here, about what the process looks like, kind of help us get started. That when do you come into the picture, or perhaps for the analysis of like, let's say, a multifamily building, what are some of the metrics you use for understanding what that usage is, or perhaps knowing that hey, the building usage seems much higher than typically what it should be? Kind of help us get started. That how do you come into play, and how can someone get started into this?
Sure, that's very easy. So first of all, like, every property has an opportunity to be looked at. Okay, so it's kind of, where do you fit into this, right? One thing that I do want to share right now is that we're trying to move through this pandemic during this unique and sensitive time, and what we have seen through quite a bit of our analysis is that the water consumption has increased on these multifamily properties anywhere 3 to 5 times.
Sure.
Because everybody's at home, and or they're being much more hygienic than they were before.
Sure.
And so when you have an all bills paid property, that is going to come out of the owner's pocket.
Sure.
If it's not budgeted for. So as a lot of properties that transacted earlier this year or late last year, and we're in the middle of their business strategy, their pro forma implementation.
Sure.
Now, a lot of those, from what I'm hearing, a lot of those programs have paused, because you can't increase the rent right now. That's a sensitive time, but how do you control the expenses? So this is a perfect time. So any of your listeners right now that have properties, this is going to be really important information. So I really like how Anselmo explains kind of what we call, if this were a dating site.
Yes, if this were a dating website, right? I mean, our perfect match would be, a property built in the 1960s, 70s, 80s. It's a class B or C property. And typically, at least around 100 units. We would swipe right on that all day. Like, that's our perfect match.
Sure.
And especially, like you said, if they haven't had any major renovation around plumbing since the property was built, we definitely need to be talking soon.
Yeah.
Sure. So let's go through some of that detail, Anselmo, here. That when you do an audit, right, what does that look like? Are you looking at like the water bills? Are you looking at sort of the plumbing, the shut-off valves? What type of faucets, toilets that they have? Explain us like what that nature of audit looks like.
Great question. So over the course of the years that I've been involved in this industry, I've walked at over 30,000 units.
Wow.
Just a few.
Yes, about 200 properties, trying to perfect, hey, what is it that we're looking for? How can we document it? What information is relevant?
Sure.
So when we do our assessment, we access 100% of the units on the property.
Sure.
As we are navigating the unit, we document the flow rates of all your water fixtures, specifically the toilets, shower heads, the aerators, so the bathroom aerator and the kitchen aerator. as we're documenting the fixture rated flow rates, we also notate any leaks that we come across, front of the wall leaks, right?
Sure.
If the toilet's leaking, we're going to document that. If your tub diverter is leaking, we're going to document that. So at the end of our assessment, we're able to put together a very articulated report with all the data on your property, as well as all the leaks that we identified during that assessment. Mm-hmm. So immediately your on-site maintenance staff can get those leaks fixed and immediately get those resolved.
Yeah. Sure. And before we head there, Anselmo and Kelly, how about understanding that are we spending more water? Like, is there any stat or how can someone determine that, hey, you know what, this water usage looks, sort of unusual or high? Are there any telltale signs in terms of the number of people living, or perhaps the type of building and things like that? Is there any intelligence that you go by that kind of, tell your prospective customer that, hey, perhaps this usage looks high? Is there any sort of guidance around, or is there any sort of metrics around how you kind of measure some of those details?
Yeah, so, and that's a great question too, because a lot of times investors, owners compare properties by the water bill, the actual dollar amount, right?
Sure.
Which can be misleading, because we always want to look at consumption, right?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
If two properties are identical, they should be consuming about the same amount of water.
Sure.
So anywhere between 60 to 66 gallons per person is what we're looking at. So if you know the occupancy on your property and how many people are on the property, and you multiply that times 66, if you are consuming more water than that, there's opportunities for us to work together with you and help you reduce that expense.
Sure. Now, speaking of the age of the building, obviously a different age of building will kind of, entail that you probably have some different nature of, like your fixtures, your toilets and things like that, right? So is there any sort of delta or any variance around the nature or age of the building compared to, sort of the usage 66 gallons per person that you said? Is there any variance around that, considering the age of the building?
So quickly to answer part of that question is the way we look at it is anything built before, or that was built before 1996 in a commercial real estate multifamily property, more than likely has a 3.5 gallon per flush toilet.
Sure.
Right? Anything after that, probably has at least a 1.6 gallon per flush toilet.
Sure.
So that's a
big difference.
Big difference, especially
Absolutely.
if it hasn't had any renovation since the time that it was built.
Sure.
The toilets that we are installing on properties right now are 0.8 gallons per flush.
Wow.
So you go from a 3.5 gallon per flush that is probably flushing more than that, because I'm not as good as I was in 81. I mean, I've lost some efficiency. So you can imagine how inefficient a 3.5 toilet is that was installed in 1986.
Sure. And it also gets back to Anselmo, where, the age of those toilets, sometimes, you have inefficient, the chains, the pull levers, the flapper can be bad. And, just a bad flapper can just overnight undetected can gush so much water that it's going to be unbelievable that what you find.
You don't realize that those toilets can leak out, 100 gallons a day easily.
Wow.
Sometimes more. But a lot of times on these multifamily properties, owners don't recognize what that water loss looks like and how it's impacting them, because it's slowly creeping up on their water bill.
Sure.
But by understanding essentially the property health and what is installed currently on the property and monitoring the consumption, that helps to identify where you have efficiency opportunities.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Now help us understand here that let's say you kind of launch an audit. You are going through all the units, all the fixtures, like any leaks in front of the wall and things like that. So what does that report then look like? Is that detailed on a unit by unit basis? And sort of what remedies do you provide? Like, are you maybe saying that, hey, your group can come help with any of the repairs, or perhaps can suggest some alternative fixtures or toilets and things like that? Could you maybe kind of go into that detail as well?
Yeah, so the report that comes out will give you a unit fixture report. So you'll have the breakdown of each individual plumbing fixture by unit number and what that flow rate looked like, as well as the punch list of any front of the wall leaks by unit number. So you have that ready to go. And then based on really what that looks like, most often we proceed forward with an installation agreement. And that's where we will come in and we'll remove all those inefficient fixtures and replace them with the efficient fixtures. And our crews will access anywhere between 50 to 60 bathrooms per day.
Wow.
So this is key for these owners who think, well, maybe I'll just try to take this in-house. I've got a, 75 unit property. I might just take this in-house. It'll take us, 6 or 8 months. And then, before you know it, it's 12 or 14 months later and they're still not even halfway through.
Sure.
Whereas we can come in and get off the property, and then that next 30 days, you're already seeing that reduction on the water consumption. So the majority of our clients will reduce their water and sewer expenses anywhere between 20 to 40%, depending upon the age of the property and the types of fixtures that are installed. But that's what we look for during those assessments. But we also work with our clients on the front side for those investors that might be penciling a property, that they can reach out to us and we can run a preliminary proposal just through typically sharing the OM with us, a little bit of property data. If there is a water bill, that's great. If not, we'll just go off of the local city rates. And then we can provide a very, very conservative proposal that investor then can pencil into their deal, and potentially that could be what leads them to winning that deal, right? So it's a much more competitive offer. And then we move forward with the full assessment, if they go into LOI and move forward. But this is a really important piece. There's so many different aspects to it. So anytime you walk into those aging properties where you see those really big toilet tanks, that's a key indicator that, that toilet's probably leaking and that it's using somewhere between 1.6 to 3.5 gallons per flush.
Sure. I always recommend, like, if you're doing a due diligence on a property, take a look at some of the units that haven't been renovated and flush the toilet. If it's still filling up and you haven't left the unit yet, it's probably inefficient, and there's probably a great opportunity to reduce that expense through a program like something SAS offers.
Sure. I mean, well said. That we all have seen those slow flushing toilets and really slow backfilling toilets where the you keep on hearing that for like 3-4 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, when is it going to
That's
stop?
your money. That's your money going down the drain right there.
Absolutely. And interesting enough, it's not a fun topic. It's more of a geeky topic. Sometimes people don't really kind of focus or talk about, but that's, as you rightfully said, it's absolutely your own money going down the drain for sure. Now, speaking of, some of these faucets and fixtures and things like that, Anselmo, some of the things that your group installs, right? Are there anything different than perhaps someone can go into your local, let's say Home Depot or Lowe's and get those? Or are these, for example, I'm aware that National Plumbing Code, for example, requires any replacements or any new fixtures that get sold on a certain like flow rates, or perhaps if we talk about toilets, you kind of get 2 or 3 types and things like that. But to conserve the water, right? Are you installing anything over and beyond that someone can get in a big box store, for example?
Yeah, so this is something that's really important, is that there's a negative stigma a lot of times around these low flow toilets.
Sure.
Because everybody's thinking about, okay, now we're going to reduce the flow in these toilets. The waste isn't going to go down. We're going to end up double flushing, which is going to just, get us back to the beginning.
Sure.
We're still using more water.
Mm-hmm.
So the toilets that we install are manufactured by Niagara.
Mm-hmm.
They are the most efficient on the market today. They flush at 0.8 gallons per flush,
Mm-hmm.
but Niagara actually re-engineered the toilet. So while it's using less water, it's using a vacuum assist type technology
Sure.
that's creating a very powerful flush that's occurring under the water. So it's powerful, but very, very quiet, which is great for multifamily. And it has the furthest line carry than any other toilet in its category, in the ultra high efficiency category. That is key for those aging properties, because those plumbing lines are not as strong. So you need to make sure that you're getting that waste as far down the line as you can, so you don't have to go in and jet the lines, right?
Sure.
So the Niagara toilets are available through retail, but they're expensive. I mean, it's a premium product out there. The other thing that we like about the Niagara toilets is they don't have flappers, which means they're virtually leak-free, right? And that means your asset is protected. You're going to have the decrease in work orders for those leaky toilets and flapper replacements. So, the reason why it makes sense to partner with an organization like us is that we're kind of like the partner expert around the water conservation and what that consumption should look like on each individual multifamily property. So by engaging with us, we're going to walk you through what the current state looks like and what the ideal state would look like. From the very beginning to well after it's installed, we're still following you, tracking those downward trends.
Sure. Now, speaking of engaging your firm, right? Like, how does that look like? You stated that you kind of can come in really at the upfront due diligence level, right? Can you maybe walk us through that? What does that nature of engagement look like?
Yeah, so if you're on a preliminary proposal, if you're just penciling a deal, you can just reach out to us directly and we can help with, a very conservative proposal. As I shared earlier, we're not going to come on site at that stage. We're just making some assumptions. But if you would like for us to come on site, same thing, then you would reach out to us and we would engage with you on that and schedule that. That is a fee. That's a fee-based service for us to come on site. We're not in the business to make money on these assessments. We have a flat fee across the country, just so that way the travel is covered and our time is covered. And then if you proceed with the installation, that assessment fee is applied towards the installation.
Sure.
So,
got it. Now, moving forward then, right? Is your group installing mostly Niagara brand toilets, or that same brand applies to like the fixtures, the faucets and things like that as well? Or is it completely, depending on the situation, it is different? Like what sort of brands are you recommending?
We are exclusively partnered with Niagara when it comes to the toilets, the shower heads, and each of the faucet aerators. And the reason why we are partnered with them is because we feel as though they have been the most innovative out there with, re-engineering the products so that they are efficient and that they work. And that's probably, if you talk to a lot of people around like the shower heads, like those water compensating shower heads, and they're like, I don't want to reduce my shower head because I'm going to end up running around my shower just to get my hair wet. Niagara engineered their shower head so that it's reducing the water, but it's still providing an expanded head with a lot of force.
Sure.
So like at home, I have the 1.25 gallon per minute shower head, and I've got some long hair here. So, and that's what we use in our house.
Sure.
And I think that that's important. I mean, it's all about the quality. And in addition to that, Niagara backs up their toilets and their products with a 15-year warranty. There's not another manufacturer out there that has a 15-year warranty on their toilet.
Sure, that's incredible. Yep.
So it just makes sense. They've been phenomenal. The savings are consistent, which is key.
Sure.
And that's why we are so passionate about the Niagara brand.
Sure. Now, speaking of sort of the returns and things like that, Kelly here, right? Every property is going to be different, but just in your opinion, like let's say someone engages your firm, and let's say if it's a 100-unit property, we'll just keep it simple, right? Could you maybe perhaps kind of share that, that investment that someone makes, right? How much of an impact do they see? Like, are they meaning like around how many years they are seeing their return, and what sort of that break-even period looks like? Could you maybe share your thoughts around that?
Yeah. So it's important to know that water rates vary all across the country.
Sure.
So one thing that we probably should share is that there's certain markets that we understand are really hot investor markets right now.
Sure.
That we would like to ensure that your listeners are what we call water aware.
Sure.
So there are areas in Florida like Tampa and Fort Myers have really high water rates. Of course, Georgia has one of the highest water rates in the country, water sewer rates. Tulsa, Oklahoma is a very hot market right now, but their sewer rate is like 3 times what the water rate is.
Wow.
So that's important. Of course, we've got various cities within Texas that are interesting. And Ohio is just, they're all over the board. It's incredible there. So with that, the majority of the projects will see an ROI of somewhere between 14 to 16 months.
Wow.
We've seen a lot that are even less than 10 months that are in those cities that have really high water sewer rates, because most of those properties haven't been upgraded.
Sure. That is a solid return.
Is really quick. Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. So, anything around 12 to 14 months, we all know that the time goes so quick. Pretty much, that, we are already, pretty soon we'll be end of 2020, and we are already like through the, middle of the year. So we know for sure that time goes quick, and the sort of the ROI that you described between 12 to 14 months of sorts is really handsome for sure.
Yes, absolutely. So if you take, for example, like 100-unit property, and let's say, we reduce the water sewer bill, by, we reduce it by $15,000 in year one, and you take that and you divide that out by your cap rate. So we're going to do 15,000. We're just going to run an actual calculation here. We're going to do a 6.5 cap rate. That's going to boost the asset value like $231,000.
Just like that. Yep. Awesome.
Just like that. So, and it is a consistent basis that we're seeing on properties, on properties 150 units higher, even the 50 to 100 unit properties. We're seeing those 20 to 40% reductions, where even now that clients are starting to really pay attention to the leaks that we're sharing with them as well, they're seeing an increase of upward of a 50% reduction because it's a big deal. It really is.
Even for like where the residents, if you rub back water or the residents are responsible for it, there's still an opportunity to work together with us, because if you can show that resident that, hey, we want to help you reduce your expenses as well, and we're going to install our products, it's a lot easier to ask for that rent increase when you've already exhibited to them, hey, I've reduced your water and sewer bill by hundreds of dollars.
Sure.
Here's why I'm asking for that rent increase.
Right. No, I agree with you. I mean, there's direct impact to it, and there are direct savings, and obviously, as Kelly stated there, that the property value is straight away increased by just these savings. So it definitely is amazing, and I appreciate your time, both of you, today. Please share with the listeners how they can kind of find you and learn more about your company as well.
Sure. So you can access us through our website, www.SASCONSERVE.com, or you can search for me on LinkedIn or Facebook. You can find me by my nickname. Try not to laugh at this, but my nickname, you can find me #the Potty Princess. So somehow I incurred that nickname a couple of years ago, and I own it and stick with it. So you can find me that way. And then what about you, Anselmo?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very involved on LinkedIn. My name is Anselmo Torres III. So find me there.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, both. I appreciate your knowledge and your expertise. It is a niche area that you serve, and it has pretty much a universal appeal, and anyone can definitely take advantage of your company services and do themselves a favor, and of course get their properties more profitable for sure. So thank you both for coming on.
100%.
It's a pleasure to host you today. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Great.
Thanks for listening to Premium Cashflow Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please join us at premiumcashflow.com to sign up for weekly updates, research articles, and more. We will see you again for another great interview with an expert guest.